Reddit just uncovered Netflix's biggest One Piece secret, the movies they don't want you to notice. Netflix hid a clue in plain sight, and it proves their One Piece isn't just live-action anime. It's pure cinema. Behind every outrageous pirate ship and rubber punch lies a secret recipe borrowed from 3 unexpected films. While fans brace for cheap cosplay and stiff dialogue, what they got was a layered adaptation that feels as deliberate as an art house blockbuster. This video unpacked exactly how these cinematic influences shape the show's look, fights and heart. Before we dive into cinematic parallels, let's get grounded. One Piece started as Eiichiro Oda's manga in 1997, becoming a global anime phenomena that blends swashbuckling adventure, heartfelt drama, and world-spanning mythology. Adapting it for live action was never going to be simple. The stakes were sky high. Translate rubber band physics, devil fruit powers, and Oda's signature mix of humor and heartbreak without losing the soul. Netflix's gamble wasn't just about scaring fans. It was about proving that anime to live action can be more than a meme. This series isn't another cartoon cosplay. It's a high-wire act between fan service and cinematic respect. Film influence number 1. Alice in Wonderland and Beauty and the Beast. Netflix One Piece doesn't just reference fantasy films, it channels their visual storytelling to establish its own fairy tale tone. From the moment Luffy steps ashore in Orange Town, the pastel-infused color palette makes every wooden beam and cobbled street feels both surreal and lived in, much like the layered realism in Alice in Wonderland. Production designer Richard Bridgeland confirms the intent. The garden aesthetics were inspired by Alice in Wonderland a little bit, while the ornate, storybook-like interiors nod to Beauty and the Beast. This dual influence shows up in character framing too. Luffy often appears small within vast, whimsical sets, wide-eyed and curious, akin to Alice tumbling into a new world. Contrast that with Nami, who's earning for more than her coastal surroundings. Quote, the way Nami studies her map in that library shot, earning more than 200 upwards, and sparking a thread digging into the show's fairy art shaded Tudum panels. And industry interviews reinforces this analysis. Swatches of pastel greens, gold and soft browns appears over town designs, interiors, and props, all meant to balance the whimsy of piracy with relatable, lived-in environment. And the cue emotional tone. 2. Kill Bill. Combat debut channels the bride's razor-sharp focus, with each strike punch full on screen. Stunt coordinator Koji Kawamoto, a katana. Before every fight, an intentional echo of Fuma Baratie. Feels like the bride versus the crazy 8. Silences immediately after hits create the same punchy rhythm. The bride versus the crazy 88 scenes from Kill Bill Volume 1 is 100% Zoro versus 100 bounty hunters. That common launched a wider discussion about literal sword choreography, stunt framing, and the emotional stakes mirrored in Zoro's first major fight. Yet not everyone embraces the tonal shift. Some Redditors argue the live-action Zoro is too far into emo darkness, slowing his usual swagger to humor. One user on Reddit, on the subreddit or One Piece live-action complains, La Zoro is too edgy and far from the source material. Talks under his breath ruins the macho-ness. Others suggest this edgier, more guarded version is a deliberate arc, starting close-off and muted, then blossoming into emotional range just like the bride's journey. Between bone-rattling choreography, stylistic framing, and the generational homage, Kill Bill shapes how Zoro enters the story, with cinematic force and emotional weight that anime and manga often relegate to off-screen imagination. Film Influence 3. The favorite and European art house cinema. Netflix One Piece integrates European art house influences. One scene that truly embodies this approach is Luffy's non-verbal handshake with Zoro after their early clash. Rather than crystallizing the moment with the close-up, the camp manga readers. Another fan-favorite theory imagines an emotional landing for Season 2 on Drum Island. The idea is that the last episode will mirror one of the manga's most beloved moments, Dr. Kureha releasing cherry blossoms over the snowy island as Chopper, finally free, cries under the pink snow. One fan posted, "Picture Chopper bawling as the blossoms fall. Perfect final shot for the season break. Guaranteed tears." This theory lines up with recent leaks suggesting the crew's next casting calls include Drum Island locals and a young reindeer stand-in. Deeper lore theories are also gaining traction. One thread with hundreds of comments proposes our One Piece imagines the live action is subtly subverting viewers. We're not following the real Straw Hat crew, but the fictional, false version within their world. As one fan wrote, I think the live action One Piece is actually not about the Straw Hats. It's about the fake Straw Hats and how they imagine the East Blue arc went. They never meant them, so they don't know. This theory suggests the adaptation draws from films that toy with memory and perception. Think Memento or Fight Club. If Netflix is intentionally portraying the Straw Hats as unreliable or idealized version of themselves, the show could be planting cinematic L-shaped clues, inconsistent CGI, off-killer shot composition, or flashbulb-like fade-ins. It positions the entire East Blue saga as the reconstruction, not a straightforward retelling, a bold film-inspired narrative device. Synthesis. Netflix One Piece isn't just a well-produced adaptation, it's an experiment in cinematic hybridization. By threading together visual and tonal cues from Alice in Wonderland, Beauty and the Beast, Kill Bill, and The Favorite, the show pulls from widely different genres and makes them work in concert. And this fusion does more than elevate the material. It sets the stage for a broader redefinition of what anime adaptation can look and feel like, from the opening scenes in Shell's Town to the moody final shots of Season 1. Every stylistic choice signals intent. The pastel-lace fantasy realism of Phallus and Beauty offers the stranger elements of the One Piece universe. Giant snails, talking reindeer, rubber man, by placing them in a world that already feels like a storybook come to life. This isn't realism for realism's sake, it's a visual getaway, easing general audiences into a mythos that hardcore fans already know by heart. The Kill Bill influence meanwhile reshapes action. Zoro's swordplay isn't just a nod to samurai cinema, it's a shot, edited and choreographed with the same intensity and clarity Tarantino brought to the Bride's Vengeance arc. But what's more important is how those fight scenes tie to character. Zoro's silence, his precision, his emotional restraint, they mirror the cool efficiency of classic revenge archetypes. And fans on Reddit have run with that, crafting theories that future seasons might turn Zoro's personal rivalries into a serialized material arts arc, complete with stylistic evolution. Then there's the favorite style framing and emotional restraint. Nicole Hirsch with Taker's cinematographic doesn't just make this show looks beautiful, it makes moments linger. Quiet scenes are given room to breathe. The silence between lines say as much as the dialogue. This approach allows episodes to pivot from broad action to small emotional beats without whiplash, and fans are picking up on it. Multiple threads compared the visual style to European politics dramas, especially in scenes featuring Garp or Kobe, where military orders and moral conflicts play out under low light and long takes. What ties all of this together is how the audience has responded. Fans aren't just noticing these influences, they're theorizing around them. From meta-narrative speculation, are we seeing a retelling within the One Piece world, to deeper lore puzzles? Are the ancient weapons living beings, and is the framing hiding more than it shows? Viewers are watching like detectives, and that's intentional. The way One Piece is shot, scored, and paced invites security. It rewards close viewing. It knows its audience doesn't just want speculate, they want layered meaning, emotional payoff, and hidden threads that tie the past to the future. By blending these cinematic styles, Netflix One Piece walks a tightrope that most anime adaptations falls from. It doesn't copy the anime frame for frame, nor does it abandon its tone for Western grit. Instead, it translates the spirit of the source through the language of cinema, and is doing so. It creates something that feels both familiar and entirely new, a version of One Piece that stands on its own terms. Netflix One Piece is proof that anime adaptation doesn't have to settle for cheap nostalgia or half-hearted cosplay. By weaving together the dreamy fantasy textures of classic fairy tales, the razor-sharp action beats of Tarantino's best fight scenes, and the patient, artful framing of European cinema, the series dares to treat pirates, rubber powers, and found family bonds with the same respect given to prestige film. Each influences does heavy lifting. The pastel set design and storybook colors make the weird believable. The visceral swordplay keeps battle gripping and grounded in real stakes. The subtle cinematography makes quiet moments matter just as much as cannon fire. The fans aren't just watching, they're digging deeper, spinning theories about hidden Easter eggs, narrative subversions, and the visual language that hints at an even bigger story moves ahead. If Season 2 keeps this balance intact, One Piece could set a new bar for how to adapt sprawling anime worlds for the screen. It's not about copying every panel, it's about translating the feelings behind those panels into a living, breathing story that feels cinematic first and nostalgic second. That's why it works. So now it's your turn. Which influence jumped out at you the most? Did you spot a scene that felt lifted straight from your favorite movie? Drop your favorite detail or theory in the comments, and let's see just how many secrets Netflix One Piece is still hiding in the plain sight.